Hello, welcome. I'm Madeline Craig. I'm an educator and a life coach for families struggling with a loved one's drug or alcohol abuse. And this is another episode of my video blog, which I call Hope for Families TV, because I intend for all of my work to offer you hope in what I know is a very dark situation. And this is episode number 6 in my Why I Do What I Do series. When I was growing up in a family so profoundly affected by addiction and other mental health issues, I believed with every fiber in my being that if other people would change, I could finally be okay. It took me a long, long time to realize that I needed healing of my own, regardless of what other people did. Yes, those other people needed help, but so did I. And that leads me to reason number 6, why I do what I do. I do what I do because the treatment industry focuses almost exclusively on treating the person abusing substances and offers very little support to families. Now, I talked about this in my previous post, but I want to dive deeper into the ways in which this happens. So the first way this happens is by trying to discredit the idea of codependency. A lot of people in the addiction recovery field do this by claiming that codependency is not in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Illnesses, often referred to as the DSM. But they're actually not saying anything new. Every specialist in the field of codependency acknowledges that codependency is not a mental disorder. In fact, if you read one of the most well-known texts on codependency, Melody Beattie's Codependent No More, it's one of the first things she says about codependency. It's not a mental disorder. Codependency is a concept. It's better understood as an umbrella term that refers to a long list of coping behaviors that people engage in when they're faced with relationship trauma, which a loved one's substance abuse absolutely is. Now, these coping behaviors provide relief in the short term. That's why we do them. But they can be damaging in the long term, especially to our self-esteem. But again, they're not a mental disorder, and no one that really knows anything about codependency has ever claimed that they were. So that begs the question, why are people in the addiction recovery field trying to discredit codependency? The reason they're doing this is because one of the solutions for shifting codependent coping behaviors is to detach, to let go, to stop trying to change someone who doesn't want to change. And the suggestion to detach goes hand in hand with the saying that you can't control the use. Now, if you've seen any of my other episodes or you've followed my work, you know that there's much more to the story than the slogan that you hear coming out of 12-step recovery, that you can't control it. Studies in cognitive behavioral science have shown that family members can have a positive influence on the use. In fact, family members are in the best position to positively influence the use of anyone. But family members can't do that if they've completely detached. But many in the addiction recovery field who are trying to discredit codependency are throwing out the baby with the bathwater. In their enthusiasm for these new revelations in the field of cognitive behavioral science, they're completely ignoring what I call addiction's double bind. Now, addiction's double bind is the fact that there are two competing realities when trying to address addiction. The first reality is that addiction is a disease, and as such, it demands compassion and treatment. And the addiction treatment community is, of course, 100% behind this idea. But the second reality is that people active in addiction or a substance use disorder hurt people, and they hurt them badly. And this is where trying to discredit codependency becomes so dangerous, because codependency offers families the tools they need to shift dysfunctional relationship dynamics, often driven by the substance abuse, and then take actions to take care of themselves and set boundaries around the harmful behavior. In fact, sometimes it is necessary to completely detach to fully take care of yourself because the problem is that horrific for the family member. So to discredit codependency completely throws families under the bus, all for the sake of trying to heal the addicted person. It is, of course, important to heal the addicted person, and I'm not saying it's not. But only trying to heal the addicted person and then doing that in a way that removes one of the most important concepts families have available to them to heal themselves undermines their ability to take care of themselves in the face of the use. And this ultimately just makes cycles of addiction even worse. I do what I do because I want people to recognize there is a middle ground and we need to occupy it. But that middle ground gets ignored in so much of the addiction and recovery community. So that's the first way. Unfortunately, there's a second way support for families gets discarded. Going back to cognitive behavioral science, one of the most promising approaches to treating addiction is an approach born of the work in cognitive behavioral science called CRAFT. And CRAFT stands for Community Reinforcement and Family Therapy. This approach can, in the hands of certain practitioners, actually be somewhat predatory to families because certain practitioners of this model, again, focus solely on the loved one's recovery and completely ignore the pain that families suffer from the damage the addicted person causes to the family, or the reality that families very often need healing in their own right. Now, other practitioners of this model, even if they don't completely ignore the family's experience, sometimes nevertheless diminish the significance and severity of it, which is really sad because the CRAFT model is incredibly promising and it's shown to significantly improve outcomes, which is why many in the addiction and recovery field are so excited about it. And this model actually informs a lot of my work with families. But it's nevertheless essential that family healing remain in focus. Families need healing too, because I don't believe we'll ever heal the addiction crisis unless and until family healing becomes an essential part of the solution. So I do what I do because I want to ensure, regardless of the treatment model, that the entire family gets the healing they need. I do what I do because I want all treatment models to work to eliminate the entire cycle of addiction and dysfunction, not just focus on the treatment of one person while ignoring the tremendous collateral damage of that person's use. Hope that was helpful. Thanks.